In our previous video, we have looked at finding square roots, finding positive and negative square roots, finding square roots that have a negative sign out front, finding square roots that have a negative sign underneath the radical sign, and also finding square roots of fractions. Now we're going to look at finding square roots that are involved in an equation. If you look at example 5 on page 72, you will see that we have an equation, a very simple one-step equation that says t squared equals 169. Now, let's think back to all the work we've done at solving equations. Our goal is always to get the variable by itself, in this case t. I want to get t by itself, but I don't have t by itself. I have t squared. So how can I get that t by itself? Essentially what I'm asking is, how can I undo squaring something? Well, let's take a look at some of these. If I was going to multiply, all right, in order to undo, I would divide. If I was going to subtract something, in order to undo it, I would add. How do I undo squaring something? Well, let me ask you this. If I take 3 and then I square that 3, it becomes 9. All right, so essentially I'm working with 9. So the question is, how do I get 9 back to 3? Well, if I take the square root of that 9, I will find myself back at 3 again. So essentially, if I square 3 and then square root it, the squaring and the square rooting will cancel each other out and leave me with my original number. So up here we talked about how multiplication and division are opposites and subtraction and multiplication are opposites. I would also like you to know that the square rooting of something and the squaring of something are opposites as well. So we can use squaring to undo being the square root, or vice versa. If I have something, in this case t, that is being squared, I can use a square root to undo that squaring. Now, this is an equation. Whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. So I also have to take the square root of the other side. Now, as we just discussed, the square and the square root will cancel each other out and leave me with just t. The square root of 169 is 13. Now remember, we said that there is a positive and a negative square root. So this could potentially be positive 13 or negative 13. Okay, let's do one more example. Here I have x squared equals 225. So let's treat this as an equation. What's being squared on the left side, I can undo by square rooting. If I have to square root on one side, I have to square root on the other side. Remember that a square root and something being squared will cancel each other out. I'm left with x equals 225, square root of that. So x is going to equal 15. And that can be a positive or a negative 15. So once again, we take the square root of both sides to undo the squaring, and we have our answer right here. So hopefully that helps. I would like you to go ahead and try got its E, F, and G at the bottom of the page. Do not forget that we are working with equations, and whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other.